We're both on Team 5.0, who are working on the capital changes at the moment. Masterplan's our senior programmer, and I'm the QA for that team. That team is here. Sweet. Something you might recognize from previous NTs or the internet. Or yeah, so we've got some capital stuff to talk about today. So first off, we're just going to take you through a little look at the Force Auxiliaries. So for those of you who don't know, these are the ships that are going to take over the triage role from carriers. So these will be coming in the Citadel release. We've got some cool pictures of them for anyone who's not seen them. So this is the
that's ugly.
the Minmatar one. Of course it's like
Minmatar.
Excuse me.
Hey, I'm Minmatar through and through, so I say it with the most love.
That is ugly.
So this is the lift, or the leaf, or something more Islamic. This is the Ninazu. This is the Megathron, the Gigathron. Not Megathron, sorry, the Myrmidon. Mega Myrmidon. The Apostle, the Amarian one, and finally the Minakawa.
Shot the back of the line
Yeah, and as these are capitals, as you might imagine, they also come with awesome capital Rex. So a couple there, and then the final ones. So again, for people who might not know, the idea is that we'll be migrating any carriers that have a triage module over to these on release day. So if you want to get one of these as soon as you log in on patch day, then all you need to do is leave your triage module on your carrier, and it will be switched over to these. Yeah.
Cool. Shall I do this? We've kind of swapped the script from
Yes.
the last one. So, right.
This is your mic.
Yes. We're going to talk about this guy on the watch list. And, you know, spoilers, some people might already know what is about to happen.
If
but
you've been on Reddit in the last hour,
yeah.
you might know what we're about to say.
So, blah, blah, blah. We have a random Supercat pilot. He's online. And he's just logged in. And now we're all going to form up and kill him because we kind of watch everybody who's ever been in a Supercap and we have them all logged. And we know where they are. So there's kind of a problem with this in that any of you can get this information on anybody for free with no cost, no risk. It takes no effort. It's kind of overpowered and silly. And this guy can do nothing about it. There should never be a reason. You should never think, I don't want to log in because of reasons. Because that doesn't make for a fun game when you don't want to log in.
Yeah.
So we want to kind of do something about that. So what we're going to do is you will only see somebody's online status if they have watchlisted you and you watchlist them. So you have to mutually watchlist each other. If you watchlist somebody and they haven't watchlisted you back, how many times can I say watchlist? You'll always see them as offline. So this just kind of slightly rebalances this unbalanced in free perfect information that we have. This got announced like an hour ago for the first time.
Top post on Reddit.
So and it's immediately got to Reddit. Yeah. So well done, internet. You got the word out very quickly. Yes.
Okay.
That's about all we have to say on that. I mean, we can take some questions and stuff at the end, but there we are.
Yeah,
so
currently that's scheduled for the next release, so that'll be in about 4 weeks from now. And we'll obviously listen to everyone's feedback about that as well. So yeah, so let's talk about the new fighters.
okay. Somebody can know the answer to this straight away if they were here last time. So who knows what fighters are and uses fighters and likes fighters? Maybe I shouldn't ask all three at the same time. Okay.
Use all three of your hands to answer all those three questions.
Yeah. So we're going to. This is a Templar. It's a fighter used by the Mark Carrier. But these are all the new fighters. So if you recognise these names and these names, these are the existing fighters that we have now. We're going to add more, so there's going to be 20 of them. There's going to be Tech 1 and Tech 2 of all of these. Normal Tech 2 rules apply, you invent from the Tech 1 version and so on. So what we're going to do is fighters that you have now are just drones. We're actually changing them into actual fighters with actual mechanics that are completely separate from drones. And we're splitting them up into 3 size categories: light, support, and heavy. Lights we're going to split into 2 roles, heavies into 2 roles, and then for each of the roles you've got 4 racial fighters. Every fighter has 3 abilities. So a normal drone, you just say engage and it does its thing. There's not a lot of choices. You can tell them to kind of recall them, but that's about it.
Yeah.
So now we're going to give you 3 different things that each fighter can do, and for each fighter you can turn on and off these abilities.
Like modules.
Kind of like modules, yeah, which will become very apparent in a moment when
And
we
then
do
you're
the
going
demo.
to do all 3 at the same time, which is going to be like...
Yep. Some abilities will have limited uses, so you'll have to recall the fighter to let it reload. Some of them will have cooldowns. Some of them, the basic attack like this is just, it'll run for as long as it runs. It doesn't sort of use ammo or anything like that.
So we'll come back to that at
Yeah.
the end if people want to take a closer look at that. And there'll be lots of the details in an upcoming dev vlog. We're not going to go into the details of the stats of these fighters at the moment because they're obviously very much still being designed as we speak. So, but we can give you a little look at them.
Because we're going to do a live demo on a test server where normally things work, but you know, things don't always work as planned on test servers, so just bear with us.
Wrong
And
button.
now you're going to learn to use Windows.
Yep. This is why.
I don't know why we got this laptop given to us, but
Where are we?
not one.
So, here we have that's the master plan in a Nix. Yes.
Yeah, so test server, expect bugs. Well, none of this is final code. Some of this code was written 2 or 3 days ago. You know, we're still very much actively developing this feature.
Yes. So you can see down here immediately there's something new. This is your in-space fighter HUD. Currently this is toggleable, so we actually.
If you had modules, they would appear there, like normal.
Go like that.
Yeah.
So this is toggleable between the 2. This will also be detachable, so that you can have both up at once. We're just, as default, making it toggleable, so people with small screens can obviously still use this without too much problem. And if we open up the inventory,
We need to know what to put in them.
you'll see what we have here is the new fighter bay. So each type of ship, so it's carriers and supercarriers, each type of ship that can use fighters will have a number of launch tubes that they can use. Each launch tube can control 1 squadron of fighters. So what we can do is we can take these guys and we just drop them on here, and this will start to load this squadron of fighters. So each type of fighter has a different squadron size, and when that's depending on whether they're heavy or light, and that's kind of adjustable. And yeah,
Do you want to do all
yeah,
5?
let's check.
So the idea is that this is actually 6 fighters, but when it goes into space, it's one thing. It's a bit like group missiles. Some of this is for server reasons, because you know one thing is easier to run on the server than 6 things. It means yeah, this will kind of scale up nicely. So you've got so these kind of go in squadrons of 6 and 12 and I think 9 and 3.
Yep.
From here we can then so these are what we call launch tubes. So this super has 5 launch tubes, carriers will have 3, and then there are size restrictions. So the light support heavies that I showed you earlier,
So
they
you
kind of go in there.
You can think of these like they're very similar to hard points for turrets or missile launchers. So you'll only each carrier will have a limit on how many of each type it can fly, it can field. With the super carriers, obviously that's quite there's quite a lot of range there. With the carriers, it's a bit more limited. Carriers will not be able to use heavies; they'll just be able to use lights and supports. And so you can see there that's filled up the whips here. So we can now just launch one of these. So you launch them out into space. You can see that they're appearing here. You can also drag, and ultimately one will be able to basically allow you to do this in any way that you'd expect in the EVUI. So you'll be able to right click, you'll be able to drag, you'll be able to.
Is there going to be a button to just launch all 5 ships at the same time?
Yeah.
That's the idea as well, yeah. So I'm just going to launch all these squads, All these loading times and launching times are all configurable as well, so they're open to adjustment depending on the fighter type or depending on how the designs end up. And ultimately, all the functionality that you get in this window, we also want to mimic in this HUD down here. So this will obviously be good for using in station, and if you have the screen real estate, you'll be able to use this. But we also want to be able to let you just close that and launch and load and recall fighters all from down here. Okay.
So somebody, you asked about are those abilities like modules? There's your answer. So each fighter has 3 or 2 abilities. Obviously they're all fixed by type. You've got sort of the role of the fighter along the bottom. That kind of tells you a little bit about what it's intended to do. So some of these are anti-cap, some of them are anti-fighter, some of them are like electronic warfare fighters. So let's go and blow some shit up.
So the way that you give orders to fighters is mostly very similar to what you would expect. So you would have to lock a target, and then you can either just straight up click a button, or you can select the fighter and use F1 to 3, which will work for these if you have the fighter selected. So what we can do is we can just give this guy an attack order, and that was him locking and now activating his ability, and now you can see he's going to cruise over towards the Ninazu and try and kill it pretty badly, to be fair. But, and also, you were asking before about whether these abilities can be activated simultaneously. Yep, that's the case. So we can activate this guy's micro warp drive, and there he goes.
So the blue line is kind of a visualization of what they're going. We're going to extend that to show sort of if they're orbiting or if they're approaching or so
attacking. Or
yeah.
So this is going to give you in-space information about your fighters, your fighter squadrons.
You want to do an M move?
Yeah. The other thing that we're adding is the ability to allow your fighter squadrons to go to a point in space as opposed to just orbiting or approaching, those kind of things. They'll be able to do those things as well, but right now we have this as a hotkey where you can click direction and then the vertical axis, and you'll see these guys will now, there we go, they'll all start heading off that way. So hopefully you're going to be able to use this to make some more kind of tactical decisions with your fighters. You'll be able to avoid other fighter squadrons, avoid bombs, things like that. And as you may have noticed here, there's a bomb ability that some of these fighters have. So that's going to come in handy, obviously, for getting yourself in the right position to launch bombing runs. As I said before, F1 to 3 works with these abilities, and the nice thing as well is that we can select all these guys. For a second, and we can just go F1. And then any ability that's in range will activate. Anything that can't obviously activate is too far away will just fail, and we're going to have UI messages that are going to explain that to you. The way that we've designed this is so that generally the F1 ability will be like their main offensive ability. It'll be like their basic attack, or it will be, in the case of this Ewar guy, it's a web ability. The second one is either propulsion or defense. So we have micro warp drives, we have a micro jump drive, unfortunately not working at the moment. We also have something called evasive maneuvers, which is a temporary, very high resist profile. So you activate that, and for its entire duration, that fighter has 99% resist is the current stat.
Yeah. And a bit of an afterburner as well.
Yes, and then it has a reasonably long cooldown, so then you can't activate that again once. So you have to tactically choose when you want to activate those abilities.
As if the smart bulbs go off.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, also want to show you what it looks like fighting a fighter. So if we take this guy, sorry, Mr. Gogu. Okay, so this is the new targeting UI for a fighter squadron. So as you can see, it mimics the same UI that you have here. And what you'll find is that as we attack one of these squadrons,
so we're just going to shoot our own fighter with one of our other fighters, because it's easier than running multiple clients and this kind of thing in a demo. Yeah. So this fighter is a squadron of 6. So it's like a group missile. It's one thing in space, but it represents 6 fighters. If you've seen the video preview, it will actually look like a swarm of 6 fighters kind of flying around, even though it's one point that you lock. When you apply damage, which you're failing to do.
I am really failing to do.
There
we
There we
go.
go. Got it. So when you apply damage, you only damage, if you like, the top fighter in the stack, which is kind of tanking a bit. When it takes some damage, it'll turn red. If he manages to break all the way through, he'll lose 1. Why don't you use the anti-fighter fighter?
Remember when we said things might break? I am using
It's a feature, not a bug.
Are they all in range?
Well, at the bottom it's showing you losing.
There we go. Right, that's doing
So
damage.
this UI isn't updating, but you can see down here that the damage is always applied to the top fighter. Once that fighter dies, the squadron reduces by 1. That also affects how much damage they do. So the damage is multiplied by the number of fighters in the squadron, and then similarly with like E-War and things like that, it's all multiplied by the number of fighters that you have there. So if
Will it stay like that in the real game, or will it just disappear from the bottom as well?
This is
that should have.
yeah. This is just a UI bug. This one's got stuff
Of course,
on there.
this didn't happen in the last one.
No, this is the joy of live demo. We've done exactly the same script and something blew up differently. No, fighters will. So once you lose one of the fighter ticks, that fighter's gone. You can't get it back.
Then?
No, the top fighter you can try to keep it alive with repping, but once that fighter's done, so you'll get the fighter from 6 to 5 to 4 to 3. As you lose fighters, its effectiveness goes down. So right now, a squadron of 12 does 12 times the base damage of the one fighter. As you kill the members of the squadron, it becomes less and less powerful. When you recall it, you'll end up back in your bay with, say,
so let's
yeah, you can do this one. So you'll end up with, half of the squadron make it back. You'll then have to top it up with more fighters from your fighter bay. So you're going to start losing fighters over time. If you kill the very last one of the squad to completely wipe it out, you do get a kill nail for that. Right, here we go. So we've got the top fighter of this Dromi is now kind of taking damage, hopefully.
He's almost there.
Yeah, so he's about to die, and so then he'll get reduced to.
Bam,
There we go. So he's now down to 2 out of 3.
So if I just stop attacking him for a second and bring him back, you'll see he'll then. There you go. He's returning to the ship. And actually, we can probably just speed him up a little bit. So he'll end up in the ship, and there's him landing, refueling, and then what you can do is just put another fire on there and restock that. And all these reloading, landing, rearming times, all those are adjustable. So that gives the game designers a lot of freedom into how they fine tune these.
More power, stop taking long until
If you show the.
So yes, let's try and kill a Rifter. This.
So some of the abilities, if you notice, have a charge count on them. These are ones that you can only use that many times. Once it runs out of charges, that's it. You're going to need to recall the fighter back into your ship to reload the charges. They're not real inventory items. They're just kind of fake charge counts that are there in space.
Yeah, so there's no need to carry fighter ammo.
So this is a very much a kind of an anti-cap torpedo. This one. So what you're going to do?
So I'm going to try and hit the Rifter with it.
Okay. So we're going to send a torpedo salvo at this Rifter,
As we get in range.
which is completely stationary.
Almost there.
Is there going to be some way to easily see the distance between the drones and the target?
Yeah, that's. If you notice, we have all of this hard-coded text down here, which never does anything. We want to put a lot of that kind of situational data into there, so you can sort of see what's going. So we hit the Rifter for 45 damage, which is shitty. So let's shoot the same thing at the Apostle, because.
Yeah. So you could I cancelled that
Because we
ability
can.
there, but that actually you won't be able to cancel abilities early in the final version.
So we've got 2 salvos left, so let's
cruise on
do something useful with those.
over here.
So we're going to send a fighter over there and see what damage it does to this.
This guy is super slow. a bit there.
65,000. So this shows that we can give the fighters very different roles, from anti-fighter to anti-structure, anti-cap. Don't get too hung up on the specific numbers because they're very much kind of open to balance. It's more just to demonstrate we have kind of different roles in mind.
Yeah. So the other end of that spectrum would be something like the Locust or the equivalent racial versions. They're anti-fighter, so they have a micro-missile swarm that does loads of damage against small ships, fighters, things like that. They also have something called the fighter drone tackle, which is a very powerful web and scram that only works on fighters and drones.
Yeah, if your fighters get caught by one of these, it's going to be like a 90% web on them.
Looks like it's making drone combat a lot more complicated.
Yes, so this is going to be very much more, the skill is going to be like multi-boxing 5 frigates, all of which are doing different roles if you kind of set it up that way, rather than, press F1. So there's going to be quite a high skill gap, we reckon, between people who are like super elite with key presses and guiding their fighters around the field to get things, like setting up bombing runs on fighters. If you're good at that, I think you're going to be.
Are there any plans to extend this sort of UI to drones, or like particularly the movement in space and stuff?
Not specifically. One of the goals is we want fighters to be an aspirational thing.
Right.
Like, this is
So
should be
you're
a
not
thing
going to
you
be able
aim
to
for.
start saying, light drones to move in that direction, for example, that you can with fighters. So that seems like quite a tactical.
The
thing.
movement UI, possibly, yeah. The
this
ability
not-
stuff,
yeah,
will
sure,
be, yeah.
sure.
How many points?
Guys, I can't hear the questions if you don't mind, please.
So so that's you can see this guy, the anti-fighter, is
Dead.
yeah, he's murdering those guys. So yeah, that's most of the fighter stuff.
So that's you're like the second, I guess third group of people to see this. I think the CSM were playing this build last week, and then people saw it an hour ago, and then you've seen it. So
Can you give us a little skim around the new ships that are on there?
yeah, do you want to have a look at the Apostle or something? Oh no, we killed the Apostle.
Yeah, I killed the Apostle.
These are going to have all the usual warp animations that the art guys have been doing, kind of cool things with. Wings pop out and things move and change shape and that kind of stuff. So, yeah.
Concern is like in large scale tie-dye fights.
Yeah.
Notoriously, the inventory system and anything like that becomes extremely unresponsive.
Yeah.
It's still going to run into the problem where right now the only thing that works in tie-dye is doom space. I still feel it's going to. I'm worried about the effect of having to drag stuff into tubes and stuff.
Yeah.
You're just going to tie-dye.
I mean, some of this is going to help with that because there'll be less stuff in space. So we're kind of saving some load. Like beyond 10% tie-dye, things are always going to be in that way. Whatever mechanic we put in place is going to have those same problems. This is just the nature of the. Right. So what are we doing now?
I'll probably show us some of the thing at the end. I just wonder if
Okay.
anyone else has got any more questions about the pirates?
So one at the back and then.
Sorry, can we get some quiet, guys? What was that, sorry?
Fighters in space.
Sorry.
Oh,
The ability
we'll come
to
back.
mark the fighters in space, so you can just give it a set location to hang around in, which
Yeah.
gives the fight, make them a bit more vulnerable to be bombed, for example. Can you give the instruction to give multiple areas to park so that they keep cycling between, therefore they're not stationary at any moment in time?
What we're looking at doing is maybe some kind of waypoint system. Another one is the option to orbit a point. So you say go here and then just orbit it, which would kind of sort of hit the same kind of goal as that.
But I think
yeah.
the fact that you need to essentially give these guys all the orders that they'll ever carry out is intentional. The idea that it will reward like the idea is that it'll hopefully reward active use.
So is the drive with this to try and push players to be a bit more focused? So they're obviously not multi-boxing, you're on your one screen and therefore you're pushing it more towards player ability rather than character skill points.
We would like to reward player ability more, or at least have a larger spectrum between people who aren't very good and people who are good.
And also, I think part of this was adding some some of that kind of complexity and interesting gameplay to a ship that is conventionally very slow and very limited in its movement. So the idea is quite often you'll be your carrier will be far away from your fighters, and you'll be basically, that's a big reason why this tactical camera has been put in the game. There was a question over here.
Are you able to play like fighters against like frigates and things like that?
Fighters against frigates, yep.
Yep.
Yeah, and in fact the ones that are kind of anti-fighter will be very good at fighting small ships.
Yeah, one of the lines of the light fighters are very much focused on that sort of role. Yep.
Are we going to see like modules similar to like on the support fighters that similar to drone damage up? So for example, on the webbing ones, it gives it a stronger web strength. Like refit.
There's no current plans to add sort of those kind of modules in at the moment. No.
Will they be affected by links?
Unknown.
Is there going to be extra training for these?
Well, there will be, so there's, I think we've announced that there's a skill book for each.
Yeah, so for skill books, current fighter skill book is going to become light fighters. Current fighter bomber skill book is going to become heavy fighters, and then there's a new one which is support fighters. So,
What's the maximum intended range for the fighter controller?
very good question.
So yeah, we
yes.
asked this earlier. Right now, you can target anything that you can see.
Do you know if that's going to be the intended final outcome?
Not quite, but it's going to be a lot more than 250k.
Okay.
What we want to be able to do, especially with the Citadel fights, when you're fighting over a structure which could be very big but also far away, is we want to have a battlefield that's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of kilometres across.
Sure.
So we might say what we do is like carriers and supers, give them a lock range of 10,000 kilometres.
Right.
And then you can send your fighters way over there. But of course, then you're over here, stuck, defenceless, if something goes wrong. So, yeah.
Was there another question over here?
Yeah, I've got one.
Yeah?
You said when the damage is applied to the fighters and it's only applied to the top step.
Yeah.
How do you envision that works with bomb damage? So does the bomb damage carry over onto the next
No.
step if it kills the fighter?
One shot or one damage application, however it happens, can at most kill one fighter.
Yeah. So you could hit it with infinity damage with one hit, and it would kill one of the fighters in the squadron. And
That's kind of been the smart bombs to killing them because.
Yep.
Is that intentional?
Yeah, I mean that because these things are effectively ships. You know, we don't want them to die too quickly. Because we've reduced the number you're going to have on the field, it's a lot more difficult to kind of keep them out of the way. So it's kind of a way to your fighter basically has 6 lives, and every time it loses a life, it gets less powerful.
But it's a kind of trade-off as well, because each one of those lives is an actual fighter that you've had to have manufactured or paid for.
Will it be option to abandon fighters in space like you can with drones currently? So you can like abandon fighters and launch new ones?
Yes, there'll be some way to like shut down the tube, and then you've got to go through the reload time,
Sure.
which might
When you
take.
say we have to reconnect to the fighters that you sort of dump like say 400 kilometres away from?
We don't know what we're going to do yet. It might be the only thing you can do is go there and scoop them.
Because I was going to say, one of the things you said then is like, oh, you could put your fighters like miles away, but your carriers will be vulnerable. In the current gameplay, it's popular, you just dump your drones at that point, launch a new set, and then reconnect later. So.
Yeah, well, you probably won't be able to reconnect, but someone will be able to go there and scoop them back up.
Yeah, sure.
How will fighters work with fleet members? So will a fleet member be able to warp to my fighters?
Warp to, we're not sure. Probably not, given that you can just put fighters anywhere. And it's like saying let people warp to probes. Yeah, so we probably will restrict them as can't warp to.
Will you be able to scan fighters down and warp to them for that?
Maybe, but again we run into the same problem, so it might be we would let you warp to the grid the fighter's on, which is no use if you're already on grid with it, but if it's like so far away, you can at least find fighters that are lost in space.
That'd be a pain, though, because it's a nightmare.
Sorry, yeah.
You said about scoop, like the only way you're going to be able to recover was to scoop. Let's give it a pain in the backside. If you land 100k off and you've got to burn 100k to go scoop your fighters.
Especially in a ship that size.
Well, he can't scoop them, they're too big. Yeah, you'd have to.
I'm going my Sharon.
So, shall we just finish with something?
Yeah.
So we're doing some new super weapons, is the short. And this is a short thing. This one, I don't know which one we have fitted on here.
This is the cone. So anyone who was here earlier saw a beam weapon, which was essentially you pointed it in a direction, and it kind of gives a sort of a warning effect, and then after that warning effect's done, it fires out a huge laser that murders everything in it, basically. Technical terms. So this one is the cone, which is very similar. It uses this this interface. So let's just see if we can send it in this direction. This might not work. So it warns everyone that it's coming, and then once it's spooled up, and it kind of damages every tip. So.
That's just one-shot carrier through all the stuff.
This is basically like a giant shotgun, except for you're firing it like once a second for several seconds.
Out of everything we've shown you today, these probably are the things that are most up for change in terms of the stats.
Yeah.
Because this is literally, this is just...
You know about 20 guys just roaming around in Titan and nothing else.
So yeah, so one of the things that this is going to do, at the start of it you get the telegraph, which is like, get the fuck out because you're about to die. The other thing, at the start of the cycle, this fires off a big energy nuke pulse. So anything around it is going to get neutered. And that includes the Titan next to it. So if you've got two of these, and you both press F1 at the same time, one of you fires first and nukes the other one, and then the other one doesn't fire. So you want to spread your guys out a bit.
Is it that heavy of a nuke?
Yes, it's designed so that one of these will nute out another one of these.
What range is that on?
That's up for...
Not certain on the numbers, but it's going to...
But the idea is that you can tactically position so that...
So stop anything that's in the path being able to monitor it right away, so there's more chance of it being...
Well, so the newt is an AoE around the ship that fires,
okay.
and then the damage is either a beam or a cone or various different shapes for different super weapons.
Is it actually possible to get out the way of this?
Depending on what you're in.
Depends how fast you are and how close you are to the edge of the beam, or
And a beam of glory. Yeah.
This neuting effect, is that applying any ships in the same class or to anything within that range?
Anything.
I believe it's
Defensive thing as well.
Yes.
Drop it in the middle of a fleet of 5, you do take it out of the way.
Yep.
Are you going to nuke out the time that fires as well?
Probably, yes.
Fire again now, but nothing else around it could. So
Yeah, I mean,
Well,
this hasn't got any decent numbers on it in terms of cap drain or anything.
or
so
cycle time, or anything
yeah,
like
and there'll be
that,
cooldown timers and that kind of stuff. So, again,
Probably.
How big a range can you shoot at?
it's
Subject to like it's not. I as far as I recall, this one, the kind of shotgun blast is significantly shorter than.
yeah.
the
I think
beam.
this is something like. That's just ridiculous, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think this one is like a 30-kilometer cone by 10-kilometer wide base. The beam is something like 50 kilometers by 2 kilometers thick. There's going to be a few different shapes.
And then there's also the other one which we've talked about, which we don't have to demo today, but the Hand of God, as it's called at the moment.
Shall we see the B one that the other group saw?
Do we have that set up?
That should be
He's
in
got
the
no ships left to
other.
kill.
If you want to eject from that and see after your beacon, then it should be.
There's Nick's there.
There was question at the back.
So with the neuting mechanic,
Yeah.
if you, as you say, you've got a buddy next to you who hits at the same time and hits 5 because you neuted him, how is that going to work with in terms of cooldown of the thing? And also,
Don't mind me.
shoot, is that just going to reset it? And also, is there an expected range for the nuked effect from the shield?
So it'll be done in such a way that if you both try to activate it,
Yeah.
one of you will, one of you won't. The one that won't doesn't incur any sort of missed timer, if you like. And the other bit was range.
Range on the nuke effect.
Not sure, to be honest. It's still very much a how big does it need to be to do what it needs to do kind of thing. There's going to be a dev blog in the next week or two, which is mostly written. I think they're just sort of polishing it up and stuff. That's going to have most of this information in. It's going to start to have some first numbers. but again, you know, when we give you the numbers, this is very much like here's the first draft, if you like. I know the Capital Group have been working on a lot of this stuff already. You know, we're still going to kind of work with you to figure out what's the best balance on all of this sort of stuff. Are you setting up the other?
Yeah, so I've got the other one ready here.
Okay. So this one is the beam, right?
Yeah, this is.
Okay, so this is the narrow, long, thin, red laser pointer of doom.
So it's, right now it still has the same telegraphing, and then hopefully.
Ship's turning.
Good shot.
Yes. Time pilot in the making.
And again, these visuals are very much the first sort of thing that Art gave us. Like, here's some stuff. They're still gonna. There's no sound effects or anything on them yet, but you know they're still completely gonna change. Yeah.
Will I be able to fit one of these on my Titan?
Probably still gonna have the one weapon restriction, but don't quote me on that. I'm not sure.
Assuming if you can have one fitted at a time, you'll be able to. Are they going to share cooldown? So if you pull one out, and put, I guess
Well, you can't
cycling, isn't it? So
yeah, you
won't
can't.
be able to put it off until it's finished.
Yeah.
And also, constant refitting.
Yes. Yeah. So as it's been talked about, well, we're also, at the same time as this, we're going to be doing. You can't refit whilst you have a weapons timer, and you're in space.
And the weapons timer persists for the whole of the cooldown for the Titan, right? Yeah.
Yep.